Oi, oi, I'm talking bollocks again. What is on the bollock agenda today? I hear you scream from the rooftops. Today it's alternate dimensional being. Ooh, if they exist. So I think what we get a lot from people is people that believe in these things like often call them aliens, and I mean I prefer to relate to them as alternate dimensional beings. I'll tell you why. So as we know it, we, as in the human race, we live in the third dimension. Obviously, we've got three dimensions. We've got height, depth, width, whatever you want to call them, but we live in the third dimension. But my big question today is, what is stopping an alternate dimensional being being two-dimensional? Just because we know the biology or our biology exists in a third dimension, it doesn't mean that other biology doesn't exist in the second dimension. I hope that makes sense. That made sense when it came out my mouth, so I hope that made sense to you. So if that is true, there would be nothing stopping two-dimensional beings existing, and for some of us sometimes to see these two-dimensional beings. I'm going to go into a bit of a rabbit hole here, so try and keep up. So some of the time we get witnesses that say that they've seen aliens, or as I prefer to call them, alternate dimensional beings. And the reason that they see them is because these aliens or alternate dimensional beings present themselves with, I don't know, let's say for example, height and width. Okay, so you're seeing a 2D image, right? Bit like on a screen, but their camouflage could be the fact that they slip into the second dimension. So they use length or depth or whatever as cover because they don't have one. Like we have the third dimension, so we can see everything because it's, we can, our receptors see, the third dimension basically, or three dimensions. So let's say these things do have that. And let me go further by being going a bit further down this rabbit hole. Other animals on the planet, yeah? We always notice that, like, if we have a cat or a dog, sometimes we'll sit there and think, oh, look, they're just barking into space, they're barking at nothing. And obviously, sometimes that's related to sound, so they can hear someone or something outside, outside your front gate or whatever. So I get that. But maybe these animals have a better sense of perception with other dimensions. So maybe they see more than what we do. We already know that cats and dogs and other animals can hear different frequencies to us. So that's one of our senses that's sort of not being tricked, but we don't have that depth of perception with certain senses like hearing. We can't hear a certain above a certain frequency, whereas dogs and cats can. So that's one thing. So what's stopping them from seeing different frequencies? You take, for example, a cat and their eyes. Their eyes are different from ours. They've got like little slits, haven't they? So maybe they see differently. And also the frame rate as well. Because I've heard somewhere, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard somewhere that certain birds actually see, like visually see, in a different frame rate. That's why they're quicker than us. That's why it takes so long for them to take off when we're like walking behind one or something like that. Look it up. I've read it somewhere. But maybe that's why they can see things that we can't. So, for example, take the bird, for example, okay? I've read somewhere that birds can see. Oh, God, I've got to get this right now. Is it a lower frame rate or a higher frame rate than us? So they see things quicker in their world, if that makes sense. So what's to stop these other animals seeing things more than what we can see? Because they're, maybe these alternate dimensional beings are moving quicker than we can witness. Because don't forget, everything or every energy is just vibrating at a specific frequency. Some of the science greats have always told us this. Like Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, they did all this kind of stuff in their spare time, mate, and they loved it, just like I love it. On that note, don't be so skeptical about ghosts or aliens or whatever people want to call them. Be a bit more open-minded.